Right, here we go, episode 26 of the Hibs Ramble. It's myself, Craig, joined by Liam and Marc. How we doing, boys? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, mate. How's
Happy New Year, or not so Happy New Year. I'm sure we'll discuss that in a bit.
Absolutely horrific New Year. So we're back. We're going to record in the aftermath of the game, but we thought it'd be better to let it maybe sit for a couple of days and try not to record solely based on being absolutely fucking fuming at what we witnessed at Tynecastle on Monday. We're not going to go through every inch of the game. We don't see the point. It's been done to death, but we'll go through, I suppose, the key talking points. First one would obviously be the team selection. There's been a lot of chat about Will Fish getting a game at the expense of Paul Hanlon. There's been a lot of chat about McCurdy getting a start. Both of them happened, and Marc, it's fair to say that neither of them worked, given that they were both hooked at half-time.
Aye, unfortunate. I think, talk about Fish and McCurdy, for me, the biggest concern in there was, when I first seen that team sheet, the formation I was thinking was 5-2-3, two in the field, and I was like, Hibs, well, not historically, but this season have been overrunning midfield at times. When an opposing team floods the midfield, we do get overrun, and that's when Newell, I think, gets exposed sometimes. So to play really two recognised midfielders against Hearts at Tynecastle was, for me, the biggest risk. Obviously, the playing Fish and McCurdy hasn't paid off, but for me, that was a mistake, putting just two midfielders on the park.
Yeah, I thought it was a 3-4-3.
Probably was 5-2-3, makes no sense. Just look at that.
That's what it looked like to me as well.
Subsequently, never turned out like that. It was more of a 4-2-3-1 / a 4-3-3. With McCurdy, and also a 4-2-3-1 with Cadden sort of sticking on the wide right, and then Ewan and McCurdy interchanging him behind Nisbet, with Campbell and Newell sitting behind them. We'll just talk about the first goal. Liam, I was saying to Marc before we started that we've watched enough of Hearts, especially against us, to know that somebody like Cammy Devlin is busy. And by busy, I mean that he's constantly in folks' faces, he's constantly closing down. He never gives players a moment's peace. I don't necessarily rate him as a footballer, but in terms of his energy levels, they're through the roof. Like, he chases and closes down everything.
Yeah, I've been on record a few times now saying that Cameron Devlin is by far and away the worst player in the division. Although I think he would have walked into the Hibs lineup on Monday. I think it's just classic terrier behaviour from Cammy Devlin to keep chasing that and not to give it up. I mean, what's he losing at the end of it if it does go out for a goal kick or a throw into Hibs? What is he actually losing? And he's taking a chance. I feel sorry for Will Fish. Mm-hmm. I think he was thrown in at the deep end. I was happy to see him in the starting lineup, to be honest, because I've liked what I've seen from him so far. But he's been hung out to dry, being played at right back. I think that's the first mistake that's been made, and it's a huge game. And I think in any other game where he's been playing in England, that goes out for a goal kick. I don't think he's used to players like that. I take any. It is bad.
It's incredible. He was.
Do you think it's? I was saying.
That's a disgrace, to be honest.
I was saying to Marc before you came on. Do you think it's naivety? Because
from Fish.
No, from the management team. So,
how could it be though? Because we've had 500 games in management. How could it be naive to play a centre half at right back in his first start in an Edinburgh derby?
I'm talking more about what Cammy Devlin does. So in that instance, right, Will Fish has tried to clear it once. Devlin's blocked it.
Mm.
We all know that he's going to get up and go for it again. But Will Fish doesn't know that he's going to get up and go for it again. So does that show a lack of preparation in terms of the management as well? Playing Will Fish at Tynecastle to start at right back for his first game, his first start for the club. Next to that, those two corners, obviously the ones that are nearest the Roseburn stand, are the most I don't know if hostile is the right word, but the noisiest areas, Tynecastle, and putting fish in that area as well, in that environment. Do you know, just think, for me, it shows a bit of lack of, whether it be understanding, which is strange because both McAllister and Johnson have played there for Hearts.
Yeah, no, I think...
No, and even David Gray as well. David Gray's played there in that exact position for Hibs.
Surely it's Lee Johnson has said, I'm going to be playing Will Fish here. And someone surely has thought, that's maybe not the best idea. Like,
it's an incredible decision. It's an incredible decision.
I thought that was a silly decision. I feel really sorry for the boy Fish, to be honest with you, mate, because that one mistake is probably now going to define the rest of his time at Hibs, which is a shame.
For me, it's not even a mistake. He does what professional football players do 99 times in a game. They just usher the ball out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was saying about the naivety from...
I think
Barry Mackay doesn't chase doing like that. Andy Halliday probably doesn't chase doing like that. Shankland, Ginnelly, they don't. But Devlin does. Devlin's probably the only one in that Hearts team that would.
But if you're Lee Johnson, you need to be wary of that. And surely he does know, because he's played against Devlin at Easter Road.
Yep.
So, I don't know, mate. I don't know.
To play I think, see, when it's an inexperienced boy going into a big game like that, right? I think, if it's a striker or a winger or even a centre midfielder, you can maybe get away with having a bit of a lack of experience. But see, when you put a young centre half or a goalkeeper in a big game, I think it's asking for trouble. Unless they are like night and day, been playing the whole season. But to put him in, that was his first start, wasn't it? To put a young lad first start out of position at Tynecastle. Like, I'm the same as Liam. I do feel sorry for him, because I don't think he's a bad player. And like you said, there's probably only one Hearts player on the park that goes for that and gets it. And because of, call it naivety from the management or just a lack of experience from Fish, it's caused a goal to go 1-0 down at Tynecastle. His head goes down. Whether that's why he's been hooked at half time, I don't know. But I do feel sorry for the lad. I think hopefully he comes back fit and we see a bit more of him. But I just think it's a crazy decision to put a young, inexperienced centre-half out of position at Tynecastle. It just seems mental to me.
Yeah, I think as well, I don't know if you'll agree with me, but there's different types of derbies. So, for example, the game at Easter Road in August would have been a better game to put them in, because we're at home, it's one of the first games of the season, nobody really knows what to expect. Or if it's the last derby of the season and we're both in the top six or we're both in the bottom six and we're kind of assured in our positions and there's nothing really to play for rather than the pride, right? Whereas that game on Monday is off the back of us being on an absolutely horrendous run and the fact that Hearts absolutely smelt blood.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they've still got a game in hand on us. They were 5 points clear. They're now 8 points clear with a chance to go 11 points clear, which effectively means our chance of going for third is done and dusted.
I think it was done and dusted well before Monday, to be honest.
Aye, but you still, points-wise, it wasn't. Like that. So we're now 8 behind. We could have been 2 behind. Just how quickly it can turn. But, I mean, I don't think a lot of people come out smelling roses for the goal. Marshall, for me, who I thought was poor during the game.
Marshall tried to come and get it, like when Ginnelly dispossesses him.
Yeah.
And then he's at an odd angle when Devlin dispossesses him and Ginnelly picks it up. He's at an odd angle when Ginnelly hits a shot. But I mean, even worse is Newell and Hanlon.
Yeah, just standing
on either side of Shankland.
Yeah.
How they're not aware he's there. He's a fox in the box striker. I mean, I think it's laughable, really, and I think Lee Johnson will be furious.
The second goal, I mean, we could probably spend an hour talking about that. Like, Hibs initially get a free kick, and then they're checking for offside, and then it's figured out that Civic is actually offside, but then Rocky handballs it, so it's a penalty. Like, I don't get it.
I don't get it, and I don't think we should really waste time.
No, that's what I'm saying. We're not going to go into it. I don't feel there's there's a need. VAR is a whole separate thing altogether. The fact that it took 7 minutes to come to that decision, though, was fucking border.
It's bizarre. I'm
And
sure
then
you've
we
said
only
it
get-
before, Mark, that there needs to be a time limit on these things.
And then we only get 4 minutes added on. Like, where's the... So, I mean, it's supposed to be this whole clear and obvious thing. 7 minutes isn't clear and obvious.
No.
But so we go down... We went in 2-0 at the break, and I mind looking up at their screen and seeing the possession stats and like the halftime stats, etc. And Hearts had 61% of the ball, which didn't feel kind of sometimes you can watch a game and go, oh, we've actually had more of the ball than that, or they've actually had more. It felt completely accurate. I felt like we never got near them.
I think it's a bit generous to us to give us 40% possession.
Yeah. Sorry, before half time, the chance to get back into it, Ellie breaks through. And
It gets worse every time you watch it.
It takes, like I said in the chat, like I'm not one of these that sort of like sometimes I'll shout and I'll be a bit like, oh fuck at games, but I tend to know to lose my rag. I completely lost my head at that. Like I'm talking, there was probably spit flying out my mouth. I was shouting that hard because for me that is at this level is just it's criminal. It's unacceptable, in my opinion. Like he's got two choices that he can make. He can try and bend it round the keeper, or he can just dink it over.
Him.
Xander Clark's coming out to him. The keeper's not going to have time to stop, turn, or even stop and pedal back if Ewan decides just to dink it over him.
Do you think that's a sign of low confidence? Or I think he maybe just took too long to decide, and he slowed down as well. Like he's one of the quickest players in our team, and I don't think Toby Civic really is very fast.
I think he's tried to anticipate a challenge and in the hope that maybe they'd go down to 10 men.
Maybe. Were you surprised though that he?
No, I wasn't surprised he balled it at all. I'm not surprised in the slightest.
Done it at Rangers as well. Just
Yep.
before half time, he had
Yeah.
a fucking chance against Rangers and he fluffed it.
It sums up our day though. That Ewan chance really does sum up.
The McGuinness double, I know we'll come into it, but I think the McGuinness double chance sums up the day as well. That was just incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been in that situation before at Tynecastle, right? And especially against a Robbie Nielsen Hearts. When they go a goal in front or even 2 goals in front, they just sit back and go, right, what have you got?
Mm-hmm.
Whether that, and I know a lot of Hearts fans that I know can't stand Nielsen for that, is that it's almost take the foot off the gas completely. And obviously we've seen it when when Hanlon scored in the last minute, what can come of it. But 2 changes at half time, Fish and McCurdy go off, McGuinness and McGeady come on, with Cadden moving back to sort of right back. And without going into what's been said about the performance second half, territory wise we dominated it. Like we absolutely dominated that entire second half. And we had a couple of half chances. Cadden cutting for the right hand side a couple of times. Ewan sort of ran at the defence and there was a couple of Stramashes in the box. There was one where Nisbet took it with his back to goal and tried to shoot when he could have laid it off to McGeady.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, I thought McGeady done well when he came on. You can see, even though he's not got the legs anymore, you can see he's a level above, like in terms of game intelligence, like almost like what Snodgrass is for Hearts. Like they're just intellectually on another level when it comes to football.
I think McGeady was definitely like the polar opposite of the McGeady that we saw at Falkirk before the league season started. He looked like he wanted to get on the ball and drive. No McGeady spins, which was a bit of a disappointment in my eyes. I was looking forward to seeing one of them, him going round whoever. I can't even mind who was playing. I think it was Atkinson on his side.
Michael Smith. But he got Michael Smith booked and then got taken off shortly after because he injured himself.
Aye.
My concern with McGeady is he probably would. That's the type of game he'll play really well at. Hearts at Tynecastle, Rangers at Easter Road, whatever, these big games, but then we'll play Motherwell on Sunday and he'll no kick a ball. Do you know what I mean? He's one of the players that I'll just not be interested in these other games. But hopefully proves me wrong.
I thought the changes definitely made a difference. But at the end of the day, it's, as has been said by even Lee Johnson himself, it's easy to come out and play when you're 2-0 down. Like,
I think Cadden had a good second half.
Yeah, he did. But again, we were 2-0 down. So, do you know what I mean? How good did we play? It was the same when we played them at Hampden. And folks spoke about the second half performance. Like, we were getting beat at the time. So it's all fine, like Johnson says, and we'll sort of speak about a lot about what Johnson said after the game as well. But like, you need to do that for minute one.
Aye.
Like, it shouldn't take going 2 goals down to get a reaction like that.
I know. It's frustrating as a fan watching it as well, because you know that if you had one of those green jerseys on Monday, that you'd be given 110% and bursting your arse, and then you've got people like, and I've been an advocate for Harry McCurdy since he joined, and it just looked like he couldn't be bothered. He didn't want to be there.
I think he looks on McCurdy. I don't know. I mean, I see folks saying that he's out of his depth and that he's too slight and he's too small, he's too skinny. But like, League Two in England is not known for its small technical players. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of effectively brickies and joiners and labourers that would play in that league.
Mark Duncan's.
Mark Duncan's, aye.
He had one good season, and I know that, like, fair enough, he's had the season of his life and he's probably peaking and all that, but it's not as if he's been, like, brilliant down there for 3, 4, 5 years and he's been getting 15, 20, 25 goals a season. He had one season where I think he broke into the 20s, low 20s, and then immediately he's got his move. I'm not saying we should have left him because somebody else might have pinched him, but, you know, one good season doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to come and have 2, 3, 4, especially when before that his record was really, really poor, actually, from what I've seen anyway. His goal record
kept bouncing about from club to club.
So, you know, have we signed the McCurdy that got 20 odd goals in a season, or have we signed the McCurdy the previous 5 seasons before that who got 5 goals in a season? Do you know what I mean? It's still to be seen.
I don't even think we've got him, to be honest.
Again, it's just like, and I think what you said is right, Liam. We need somebody that shows a wee bit of effort. At least if you're the one thing that top managers say is that when you're no getting a goal, when the striker isn't getting a goal, you have to bust a gut. You have to put 150% of the performance and a goal will come eventually. And he just doesn't look like he's really given that. He looks like one thing happens, his head goes down. He's the type of player that if you kick him once, you'll no see him again, and you'll no survive in Scottish football like that.
He shanked an opportunity first half, didn't he? Really good opportunity.
It was a volley, isn't it?
What was a tough? It was a sort of deep.
It was a good area. It was a difficult one to take, but it was a really good area.
Skim it along the ground, hit it,
man.
I mean, we wouldn't have heard it because we were at the game, but apparently Johnson came out and said on the radio before the game when he was asked about his team selection about McCurdy, and he said that he's just as likely to get sent off as he is to score the winner. Like,
why play him then?
But why make a comment like that in the press? Like, this is the thing as well, because he spoke after the game about clearing out the deadwood. Says that there's probably about 9 or 10 players that could go. He'd get rid of 10 to bring in one quality. And he goes on to name, he was like, Joe Newell had a good game. I'm not even going to talk about that. Because I don't think that even deserves any airtime from us. But he mentioned Kyle McGuinness. So if he's talking bad about McCurdy and then he's talking up McGuinness, why is he starting the one he's talking bad about and then benching the one that he's talking good about? Like, I know he's said something about managing their fitness and whatnot, but what's the point in bringing them on at half time when we're 2-0 down. Start the game when it's 0-0. Do you know what I mean? We've now got 9 subs on the bench. You can make 5 subs during the game. So you've got more options if, for whatever reason, one of them was to break down.
And I think part of that as well, what really frustrates me is week in, week out, the amount of not necessarily rotation in terms of players, but we're trying all these different shapes. We're trying 3 at the back, 5 at the back, 4 at the back. We're trying different midfields, different attacking options. As a manager, I think, and again, I'm not a manager, so whatever, but for me, 1 or 2 formations should be it, and then everything should be built around that formation, built around the players and the manager's style. And you should, all your defensive drills, possession drills, attacking drills should all be based on that formation, so that you go into a game on a Saturday, it's what you've been doing in training. I didn't understand how he can be training through the week on 4, 5, 6 formations and then making a decision on the Saturday and expecting the players to go out and know what they're doing. You need to put in a hell of a lot of work to get to understand even one formation, never mind three or 4 different ones. So that's a real frustration for me. We were on a run of 4 wins, right? And in that win, in those 4 wins, we played with the same shape, we played with the same sort of players. All of a sudden we lose one game and then we just rotate it every single week. We need to stay consistent and believe in what Johnson is offering. You can't change it all the time.
Mate, you're talking about formations, right? And Johnson's been here since the start of summer. And he's seen all these players come in. The first thing you do when you take a job, you look at the players you've got and you fit them into a system that you want to play.
Correct.
And you play that way. You didn't chop and change. Fair dues, maybe chopping and changing from 3 at the back to 5 at the back, because it's an easy transition to make in the game. But 3 at the back one week, 4 at the back the next week, playing centre halves at right back.
Different midfields, different front 3s, front 2s, strikers on their own. Do you know what I mean?
It looks like an act of desperation.
I think you make a really good point about the formations. I mean, you think back to like Stubbs and Lennon, for example. We sort of flitted between the diamond and the 3-5-2, and the players that we had at the time were able to rotate into the particular system that we needed at that time.
Yeah.
Whereas, like Liam, like you're saying, we're playing everybody here, there, and everywhere. But like you're saying about, when he comes in and he's bringing players in to fit the system, he told us when he got the job he'd watched the 2-3 games before the end of the season, so he knew what players were already in the building. Do you know what I mean? He'd actually seen them firsthand, and we're still. So if he's been doing his research, even say since the end of April, there's 7 to 8 months, and we are admittedly worse than what we were when Maloney got sacked.
I mean, I don't even think that I could name Lee Johnson's preferred 11. I don't even know if I could name my preferred 11.
I don't think Johnson could name his preferred 11 or preferred formation. And I'm not a John. I don't dislike him, and I don't want him to be sacked in that. But if you look at the top, and I'm not comparing him to the top managers in top clubs, but if you look at the top managers at the top clubs, they've got a style and they've got a formation, and every single player that comes in the door is specifically to fit in with their system. It's not because they're a big name, it's not because they're whatever, it's because they fit in. You look at Pep, and again, I'm not comparing it to Pep Guardiola, but he brings in players and they slot in and immediately they become world class because he's calculated that to fit into his system, and it does, and it works. Johnson should have a game plan, have a formation, have a plan B, obviously, that's great, but have your style and then bring in the players that you need to fit into your style. Didn't he change your ideologies just for the players that you've got? He needs to have a style and bring in the players that he wants, and it's going to take time to do that, but he can't be chopping and changing every week because that looks bad on him. At least if he sticks with the same idea in the formation, you can say, right, well, it's the players not fitting into his ideas and not the other way about.
I don't even think you need to look as far as Pep Guardiola and Man City. I think you can even just look at Hearts. Look at the signings that they've made with Joe Savage at the helm. Before that, it feels like we are now in the Craig Gordon, the Craig Levine era, where it was scattergun, throw heaps of shit at the wall and see if anything sticks. Mm-hmm. But now they are doing their transfer business wisely, and I hate to big them up, But I mean, they've done some great transfer business. Maybe didn't add enough in the summer to cover, for Europe and stuff. They've got a few injuries, but you look at Shankland, you look at Devlin, Atkinson, even going back to when they signed Michael Smith. I mean, they ken what they're doing, and they're pinpointing these players that will come in and fit in the system, and they do, and they hit the ground running. And I don't think any of the signings that we've made this year, apart from David Marshall, but he doesn't really count, and Boyle, but he doesn't really count, have hit the ground running.
Realistically, would any of our starting 11 get into Hearts 11?
From Monday?
You could make a case possibly for Porteous and Boyle.
But they never started, so.
But other than that,
if Hearts had a fully fit team, I don't even think they'd take Porteous, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. You look at, so in the last, 12 to 18 months, going back 2 years, right, they've signed Kingsley, Halliday, Shankland, Halkett, Craig Gordon, and who was the other one? Barry Mackay, right? And now Robert Snodgrass. So there's 7 players. Every single one of them, what they've got in common is that 1, they're Scottish. 2, they've played significant portions of their career in the Scottish League or leagues. And 3, they're all. Did I say they're all Scottish?
Aye.
And they're all good.
They're extra Scottish.
They're all at the latter end of their careers. Do you know what I mean? You've got Mackay, who I think is about 28, 29. Halliday's 30. Kingsley's about 29. Shanklin's probably the youngest one at 25, 26 maybe. But they have went down the route of what we done a few years ago. McGregor, Fivey, McGinn, McGeoch. Even somebody like Stokes, who'd played in Scotland for almost a decade.
Simon Murray,
players like that. Aye, Ambrose as well.
He's
big Scottish Effie Ambrose.
No, but I mean, in terms of experience of the league, we in the summer we signed what? Marshall, McGeady, and Boyle. Marshall hasn't played in Scotland for about 12, 13 years.
Neither's McGeady.
No far off the same for McGeady. And Boyle was only away really for 6 months. Signings like McCurdy could potentially work if it's if McCurdy's like that 1 out of 7. Do you know what I mean? That fits into the structure. Whereas you look at Boyle, Marshall, and McGeady, and they're like the 3 out of 15. So everybody else is trying to fit around them rather than them trying to fit in around everybody else, if that makes sense. And then just to finish it, like you said, Mark, we'll not talk about the third goal too much, but those 2 double misses for McGuinness. I think the first one, you can argue it's a packed penalty area. The keeper's moving, he snatched it a wee bit, but the second one, oh my fucking god!
First one's a great save. Second one, you just need to smash it. You need to lift it.
Pick a corner and do whatever you want.
It had time to take a touch as well.
It was never going to go in, though, was it? It was never going to go in.
No. And then the third goal is just poor for all 3 concerned. I've no idea. When you see the view for the Roseburn stand, I've not got a fucking clue what Marshall
is doing. So funny, by the way.
What Marshall is doing. It almost looks as if he thinks Stevenson's going to get it.
Well, Stevenson's ahead of him.
But he tries to make the angle to get the ball, to take the pass.
I get what he's doing.
But Stevenson, having played another 90 minutes at 35, he's 35 tomorrow actually, against a 24, 25-year-old who's just came on as a sub. There's only going to be one winner. And I mean, just on those 2, right? So I've done a wee piece on them because Hanlon and Stevenson have been given a lot of criticism after yesterday. And to be fair, their criticism is constant. They're constantly named after games. Hanlon and Stevenson, they're finished. They shouldn't be anywhere near the club. Yada yada yada. So I've done a bit of digging the day, and I've got some stats on them. Right now, some might be a wee bit off. but generally most of it's spot on. So combined appearances for Hibs, right? They've made 1,073 combined appearances. So that's the Premiership, Championship, League Cup, Scottish Cup, European games, etc. Stevenson on 443 league games and Hanlon on 413 league games, right? We have signed 34 players in their position. So left centre, so not even left centre half and left back. I've left out players like Whittaker who could play in both because I didn't think it was fair to include Whittaker because he wasn't necessarily signed as a left back.
And I also love Stephen Whittaker.
Yep. But I mean, they've both. So in terms of their appearances, right? Stevenson between 2013 and 19 was minimum 34 appearances a season. So league season in the top flights 38 games, championships 36. So he missed 2 or 3 league games a season. Hanlon's roughly the same, but he's had more injuries than what Lewis has, right? So I'm going to run you through the names, right, as centre halves that we've signed since Paul Hanlon made his debut. Now we had players like Sol Bamba, Chris Hogg, etc., but they were established first team players before Paul made his debut, right? So we've got some of the names on this, honestly. Darren McCormack, Stephen Tico, Francis Dicko, David Stevens, Sean O'Hanlon, James McPake, Jordan Foster, Michael Nelson, Daniel Boateng, Liam Fontaine, Darren McGregor, Brian McLean, Effie Ambrose, Darnell Johnson, Ryan Porteous, Adam Jackson, Jonathan Spector, Nathan Wood, Rocky Bushiri, Harry Clark. Like I said before, he's a debatable one. And then Will Fish.
Sean O'Hanlon.
I feel so sorry for Adam Jackson, by the way. I thought he was a player.
22 players, and Paul has outlasted every single one of them. Bar Rocky, he'll probably not outlast Rocky.
I don't know if that's a compliment to Paul Hanlon or just how absolutely mince that list is.
He's kind of like the Queen, and that list is like the Popes.
So he's the season where he made his lowest amount of appearances was the season after he made his debut with 7. And then he's had the injuries, obviously. He was injured when we got relegated in 2014, but he won the Player of the Year that year. And then he missed the second half of the Championship season when we got promoted. And he'll be 33 in a couple of weeks. But 516 appearances in total for Hibs, right? And then Stevenson. So the left backs that we've had in that time, right? So Ian Murray, Jonathan Grounds, Kujabi, Ryan McGivern, Callum Booth, Adam Eckersley, Callum Crane, Faisal Reras, Mikel Nilom, Sean Mackey, Josh Doig, and then Cabrera.
Wow.
Now, you could argue that out of that entire list of players, right, the 34 players that I've named, at the moment, one has been a success elsewhere, and that's Doig.
I can't believe that left back list. Ryan McGivern and Paku Jabi in the same list.
The rest of them...
Jonathan Grounds, remember him? I'm sure we had George Franco as well. Was he a right back?
He's a right back, aye.
Was Alan Maybury a right back?
No,
Alan Maybury, I don't think Alan Maybury even kens what Alan Maybury is.
He was just a wee frail.
But even so, with Lewis, right, he's the lowest, the season he made his lowest appearances was 2010. Since 2013, like I said, between 2013 and 19, minimum 34 appearances, and I've just done league appearances as well. So minimum 34 appearances in the league. And then even in the 2 seasons with Doig in the side, he still managed 22 and 23 appearances both seasons. He's only had 3 seasons in his 17 total seasons as a first team player where he's made less than 20 appearances.
That's all right, like for him, that's all right.
Like I said, it's 35 tomorrow. So happy birthday, Lewis, when that comes. But this is more to like.
There's not many players in that list that you look at and go, "Oh, he had a tough time. It was actually a decent player." There's not many players in those lists that were actually better than Paul Hanlon or Lewis Stevenson. Adam Jackson, maybe, Josh Doig, but then
we can argue that Fontaine, McGregor, and Effie, right? But None of them
But
were.
then at the time that they were at Hibs, they were probably on level with Hanlon. Because Hanlon
That's
was.
what I mean. So none of those players that I've mentioned over time have been able to stick at it long enough to displace Paul for the first team.
But that's the reality of it, though, because any of those players who do end up becoming better than Paul Hanlon and do end up being significantly better, I'll just move on. And any of them that are significantly worse, I'll get moved on. So when you have somebody, the reality
Hanlon.
is somebody at Hibs, right, who's got 500, 600, 700 appearances in the modern day, isn't going to be a world beater. Let's face it, they're not going to be a world beater. So I don't know. I think they're good. They're good enough, but no good enough to get a move elsewhere.
Well, the boy that I was standing next to at Tynecastle was saying, at the very peak of their careers, Hanlon and Stevenson were Hibs level.
Aye,
you could argue that their peak though was the seasons we were in the Championship. I mean, we were in the Championship 8.5 years ago. So Paul would have been 2014 we got relegated. So Paul would have been 25 that first season in the Championship.
God, and then Lewis for ages, because even when we were in the Championship, they'd been around for ages, and they were only 25.
Lewis would have been 27.
That's mad.
That is mad.
That makes me feel.
So you can argue that throughout those seasons. So when Stevenson sort of started, when he was 25, that's when he started that minimum 34 appearances a season run.
Right.
It's whether, so when you say that that was their peak, did we actually see them at their peak while we were in the Championship?
Maybe.
But then that season we came back up with Lennon. The two of them were outstanding.
Yeah.
And you need to remember as well, off the back of that, even though it was only one each, they still both ended up being capped by Scotland.
So the bloody Paul McGinn, so I wouldn't call that a flex.
But I think
we all know how I feel about him.
Before when folks say they've not signed anybody to replace Paul Hanlon, like you don't need to sign someone to replace him. You just need to sign someone that's better than him.
To challenge him.
We need to start.
I know there's a lot of players that were older, so you kind of need to take that into context. But Fontaine isn't that much older, maybe 3 years or so, and he was bombed at Hibs when he would have been 28. Maybe
and he still went on and played for a couple Premiership teams.
Yep. Somebody like obviously McGregor's, I've got a few years on him, Effie as well, but like there's not one player in that list that you can say has went on to have a better career than being a first choice player for Hibs.
Nah.
Poch is probably the only one.
I think Doig will probably get there, but
Doig isn't a centre half.
All right, well, I mean, he started as a centre half technically.
Like even the left backs as well though. Like Sean, like 5 of them, if you include Ian Murray, have come through our academy, and not one of them's been able to successfully displace Stevenson, bar Doig, and even then Doig, you could argue, was
didn't he?
Almost a development signing, and he's just accelerated.
Like I said though, they're always Hanlon and Stevenson have always been a constant, right? So I don't think it's ever been a case of displacing them. They just outweight whoever's in that position. They just wait until they move on. If somebody comes in, right, and is better than them at centre half or left back, they just have to wait until they either get moved on or that player decides to move on and they're back in the starting lineup. They just have to wait. They'll get in.
Mark, like Stevenson in 2 seasons with Doig, across the 2 seasons, still made 55 appearances in the league.
That was probably more because Josh Doig could just come in and probably didn't have enough. I know he was young, but
45, sorry, no 55.
I think Jack Ross probably wanted to get a mixture because putting a young lad just at the academy in for a full season is a lot of pressure, I would say. So they probably wanted to do a bit of in and out.
I just think it was more about trying to put like a bit of context behind folks saying they need moved on, they've not been replaced, this, that, and the next thing. When you actually look at the names, they've actually outlasted a lot of players between them.
Who are probably still playing as well.
And I think that a lot of them, I think a lot of supporters, while Paul and Lewis aren't the players that they were at 25, 26, 27. Do you know what I mean? Both won the Scottish Cup. Lewis has won both cups. Over 1,000 combined appearances for the club. I just think that they deserve a wee bit more respect than what they get.
They do. I think they're easy targets, though, Craig. That's the thing.
They what?
They're easy targets. They're Hibs boys. You can. People are always going to, go for them and stuff. If we have a bad, I mean, I've been guilty of it a lot of times. If we play badly, it's Hanlon and Stevenson's fault. Get them out. They're old. We need better. Everyone's done it at one point or another. But they do command more respect.
What do we think about Johnson? Just quickly, Johnson going out before the game on Sunday night.
Don't really care, to be honest.
Don't care.
I don't care. I think it's something that he does often. If you believe what you read, he went out for a meal and then stopped for a Coke and then went home.
I don't believe that.
But do you think that the image that it portrays is the right image to portray?
No, not at all.
That's what I'd mentioned in the group chat when we were talking about it. Do you know what? He's a grown man, they're adults, I ken they're athletes and all that, but
it was New Year's Day and all.
Do what you want to do, right? But before an Edinburgh derby, when there's so much pressure on you, for your job, for that. It's no any game. It's an Edinburgh derby at Tynecastle, New Year's derby, and you decide to go out on the piss. It's like, why that one night? Even if it's a tradition of yours, why not just stay in? Keep yourself out the headlines.
Go somewhere where you'll not be recognised.
Aye, and
recognised because he's a Hibs manager, but somewhere a bit more low key, not the fucking middle of George Street.
And just like you just touched on there, the example that we had young Ethan and Josh on this podcast, right? Can you imagine that development squad, that under-19 squad, looking at that, the first team manager on the piss before a big game? What kind of example does that set to the next generation of Hibs players coming through? Is that all right for them to go and do it? If they come in hungover the next day and the gaffer goes, what he's doing? Well, you were out, so why are you having to go at us? It just sets a bad example. That's the one thing that irks me. And the other thing that irks me is just why that 1 week stay at home before an Edinburgh derby, heaps of pressure on you, just stay out the headlines and focus on the game so that it can't bite you in the arse once we get pumped 3-0.
He would have been the roughest guy in Tynecastle on Monday.
What about his comments after the game?
I understand why he said what he said to try and get the fans back on side, but it's got shades of Butcher, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's classic deflection, dude. Deflection for terrible.
He didn't go into the changing room either.
I've seen that. That's funny. Eh?
He didn't? What, so he just went home?
He didn't. No, he just went and sat on the bus. So apparently he done the press and then went and sat on the team bus. He's actually spoke about it to Sky Sports today.
I'll need to watch that.
The comment he made about Porteous and historical poor decision making or historical poor professionalism for the club.
It's passing the buck, in my opinion. He's probably...
I mean, he's not wrong, but Porteous isn't going to get offered a contract to be the highest paid player 2.5 years ago.
No.
Like, he's just not. He wasn't good enough.
Oh, but he should have been given better than an academy deal.
I also do think there's maybe been a wee bit of stringing along for Porteous as well. But again, like, we'll just need to see. We'll move ahead to Sunday. Away to Motherwell, who haven't. Oh, by the way, Liam, you'll love this stat, right? Guess who haven't won a home game since August?
Motherwell.
Oh, let me guess.
Motherwell.
Oh well, they'll be delighted.
So Hibs are coming to town.
Yep.
As long as McGinn doesn't score, I'll be happy.
Some questions, and we'll do our questions first, and then we'll lead into the Motherwell game. So Liam.
Oh wait! Before we do the questions, we've got pie reviews to do.
Which pie is the best in the pie review? Which pie is the best in the pie review?
Alright, so we do. Right, Mark didn't get a pie. He was just on a Diet Coke. New Year, new him and all that.
With a Jack Daniels in it. Probably just incriminated myself there.
That was. I'm sure I seen you with that outside the stadium footprint, Mark.
Aye.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Liam, we both partook in a tiny pie. It wasn't a tiny pie, it was a normal sized pie, but they give it in this wee sleeve that's got a Hearts badge on it.
Exactly the same as they used to do at Easter Road.
Yeah, and I actually balked and took my pie out and gave it back to the lassie because I didn't want to be carrying something with a Hearts badge on it. Does that make me pathetic and bitter? Yes. Do I care? No. So, Liam, give us what was your overall score?
13.
13. Mine was 11. 11. Temperature, what did you get?
I got a 4.
I went 5.
It was very, very good. It was just a little bit too hot.
Nah,
wee burny tongue moment.
My temperature was absolutely spot on. Like, we've spoken about the temperature a few times that can make or break it for me. And it was perfect. I couldn't fault it. What about your crust?
I've gone for a 3.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't very flavourful, although it didn't fall apart for the most part. It wasn't soggy, and it see at the top rim, it was like crunchy.
Yeah.
I appreciated that. I did appreciate that.
I think in the pie review, a lot of the crust scoring comes on whether the pie falls to bits or not. I think
for sure you always need to take into account the structural integrity of a steak pie.
Yeah, if it doesn't 40 pieces, it immediately gets almost like a 2, a plus
it's like
2.
A baseline score.
I was a 3 as well.
Average.
For the reasons that you mentioned, but it was just a wee bit dry.
I agree.
A tiny wee bit dry. That not even a bit of sauce could have helped, I think, because it was the outer crust. No, the lid. The lid was spot on. Filling, I've went for a 1 because what was inside was akin to what I give my dog out the Lily's tin. It was pure and utter mush. It was like somebody had gotten a bowl of soup and solidified it, patted it down, and shoved it into a pie.
That's mine.
Doesn't sound very nice.
The taste it wasn't the taste so much, it was the texture. I like chunky wee bits of steak, a nice good bit of gravy, even the wee bits of steak that float about in there that you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting you in this bite. Whereas that was it was literally like it had been taken out a tin of Whiskas and put in to my pie without actually tasting like cat food.
Well, I've given the filling a 3, an average. I kind of understand where you're coming from, but I think I had a better one than you. It was kind of like pulled pork consistency for the steak. But I felt like the ratio was good. It tasted alright. I quite liked it though. I quite liked the texture. So I'm giving it a 3.
The texture of it gave me the book, so that's why it's getting a 1. And then price, I've gone to £3.50 for a pie. Not good enough, I'm afraid.
Well, I went for a 3. I've stated before that £3 to £3.50. I'm happy to pay. I feel like that is the average kind of. I feel like that's the average kind of price range for a steak pie at a Scottish football ground in the top flight.
Yeah. And the cost of living crisis, you can only
listen. People have got to make their money somehow. I'm happy to pay £3.50 if it's a good pie, and I feel like it was an alright pie.
Adequate.
13 out of 20 for me.
Maybe if the filling was a bit better for me, the value of it would have been pushed up, but £3.50 for a cat food pie, no thank you.
Yeah, I understand. Don't worry.
Right, on to our questions for the Ramblers.
Now it's time to answer the Hibs Ramble listener questions.
The first one comes in from Liam at LH175. No question, just a statement. Ian Gordon, fuck off now.
Next question.
Yeah.
Fair dues.
Just can we just add that is the views of Liam and not the
Views of Liam Horribine.
not the
not me.
expressed views of the Hibs Ramble.
Not me.
Gav has come in with an absolute belter.
I've seen this one earlier.
Should Mick Grady start on Sunday? And then has went on to add Mick Giddy.
But he's put his two different words.
Yeah.
MC Giddy. MC Giddy on the mic, yes I.
Mick Grady. Or MC Grady, aye, and MC Giddy. I would start him on Sunday, yes.
Yeah, I mean, what have we got to lose? Better, why don't we start him, and then if he needs to come off, he can come off.
Yeah.
Why not?
John's asking what's for dinner.
Sausage, chips and beans for me.
Nice.
TBC for me, absolutely not sure. Still need to check what's in my crap freezer.
Scraping the barrel.
Aye.
4 days into the month.
Still eating leftovers Christmas dinner.
I'm going down for a nice bowl of spag bol and garlic bread.
Ooh, beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. Barry's asking, oh no, sorry, and then John's went, that's it, no more questions, blame Hanlon or whatever, I don't care. First of all, John, can you please let us know what you're having for your tea? And
Pictures as well.
Yeah, preferably pictures, and also I empathise with the way that you're feeling. Yeah, we can. I feel there's a lot of sadness in that message for John.
I know. Are you okay, John? Please reach out.
Yeah. It's going to Motherwell, probably going to be a shite day out. Motherwell is a shite hole, so yes, regardless of the result, it will be a shite day out.
It's a Sunday.
And it's a half one kick-off.
Half one kick-off, so probably.
Although, there is one saving grace, and that is we get to tick off one more box in the Piemiership chart.
Mm-hmm.
It probably will be an awful day out.
And it'll be an awful pie as well, I would imagine. Because
Motherwell, to be fair, Motherwell has produced some good away days, but
not at half one.
Not on Sunday. We'll see.
If you had to take Hecky, Maloney, Ross or Johnson, who would you take? That's almost like asking what one of your mates you'd like to catch riding your missus.
Who asked that question?
Jack Hibs.
Who's it? Ross, Maloney?
Ross, Maloney, Hecky or Johnson?
Heckingbottom.
I'd actually take Hecky probably.
Yeah, because he's doing alright at Sheffield.
Yeah.
Maloney all day for me.
All day.
A new contributor who's just showed up, Lorenzo, with an Italian flag, Japanese writing and South Korean writing.
Lorenzo's been involved a few times.
I think the first part of his message is in what I believe to be Korean. So unfortunately, Lorenzo, I can't decipher that because I'm not Korean.
Uncultured swine.
And he said, after the last match, not because it's a derby, I started to think we need to turn the page for Johnson. It is absurd. The guys only play one half per match. I guess they play against the manager. What do you think?
Say that again. We have to turn the page on McCurdy.
On Johnson.
As in get rid of him?
I think that's what he means.
I think he means the opposite. I think he's asking why do they only play 45 minutes of football?
Which, I mean, is very valid because...
I mean, if the question is, does it look like the players have down tools? I would say no, they're just not good enough.
I would say they've not down tools. I think I would agree with you. I don't know why they only play for half a game though, because it seemed to be a common theme recently that they're turning up in one half, usually when we're getting beat.
Yep. Zach is asking opinions on Will Fish.
I like the lad. Feel like he was thrown in the deep end. Feel sorry for him, to be honest.
Same.
Although he's had the world's hardest paper round at 19.
Would be very surprised if he played for us again, though. Very, very surprised.
Yeah, me too. It's a shame, though. File under Nathan Wood, Darnell Johnson, etc.
And finally, we'll just go for AS on this one because I don't want to butcher your username. If you could bring back any previous assistant manager to take over as manager, who would you pick?
I seen this one earlier and I've been thinking about it all day, and I really don't know.
It's got to be John Doolan, surely.
I think John Doolan or Marc Venus.
Morris Malpass.
Oh, Christ almighty. What about Derek Adams?
I don't know who was the assistant, if it was Doolan or Taff.
It was Doolan.
So whatever one of those two, I would take one of those two.
What about Derek Adams? Take him back.
Well, apparently that's why he left, because he was supposed to be getting the job when Calderwood went, and then Calderwood didn't go. And then we've got a new account at LJ sacked by Hibs, who replied to the question that as of 14/10, January 4th, 2023, Lee Johnson has not been sacked by Hibs. And he just seems to be replying to anything mentioning Lee Johnson with not sacked yet, Lee Johnson set to remain Hibs manager, still not sacked, etc.
I bet you this is the same virgin who made the account on deadline day called Ronan and Gordon out, and then had their faces again like the big circle traffic sign with a red line through it.
Right, very quickly, looking ahead to Sunday. I want to do predictions, but I know Sean likes to do that. That's his wee bit, considering he's never here anymore.
That's bloody
and
rich.
did you notice as well?
Again, I can't talk.
He's obviously not heard my dig about, because he said he's not listened to last week's pod.
Yeah,
He's not
no,
heard my dig at him yet, but this is another one at you, Sean.
just as
Who the hell goes to London for 5 days over New Year? Get a grip of yourself.
Oh, it has been his birthday though, so can we say a big happy birthday to Sean? He's
No.
turned 30 yesterday on the 3rd.
No, we can't. He's an Arsenal fan, so no.
Arsenal.
Confident about Sunday, Mark?
Nope. But do you know what? It's a day out. It's an away day. We'll go and support the team like we always do. And do you know what? I am confident. They're pish. We can get a result against them. And if we don't, then I'll be cross.
If we don't, then bloody hell.
Then bloody save us.
Confident, Leon?
I don't know really how Motherwell have been getting on recently,
Crap.
but
Not won at home since August.
yeah, no, not confident then.
And when you're in a team in a bad run of form, who is the one team that you want to see next on your fixture list?
Definitely Hibernian FC.
Hibernian FC, exactly. So we'll end it on that note. Once again, Happy New Year to everybody listening. Thanks for your support over 2022. We hope to continue it into 2023. We'll be back next week to review the Motherwell game. God knows what will happen in between. We might end up having a new manager, having 12 new players. We might end up being dead because Ron Gordon's just decided to fuck this, I'm no arse anymore. So it'll just be another exciting week of the roller coaster of Hibernian Football Club. So thanks very much for listening. If you can like, share, subscribe to the podcast, get it out there, get more eyes on us, and keep your interaction coming, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.